What if I told you that the relationship between Canada and the United States, two of the world's closest allies, might be on the verge of a historic shift? That for the first time in decades, Canada is not just questioning its alliance with the US, but actively preparing for a future that doesn't revolve around Washington. This isn't fiction. This is April 2025. And what's unfolding right now could redefine the very fabric of North American politics, economics, and security. In a bold and controversial move, President Donald Trump announced a 90-day pause on newly imposed reciprocal tariffs affecting numerous global trade partners. But guess who got left out? Canada and Mexico. Both nations remain under the weight of existing 25% tariffs on goods that don't comply with the USMCA. The decision sent shockwaves through Ottawa, where Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney wasted no time in expressing deep disappointment. For Carney, this wasn't just a policy disagreement. It was a signal. A warning shot. He called the move a violation of the cooperative spirit that the USMCA was supposed to uphold and declared that Canada must now reconsider not just its economic alignment with the US, but its entire security relationship. This is not a drill. Canada is accelerating its trade diversification efforts and rolling out a new defense strategy that may radically change how it does business, who it trades with, and who it trusts in matters of national security. For a country that has long counted on its southern neighbor for both economic prosperity and military partnership, this pivot is monumental. Carney's proposed reforms represent more than a simple policy shift, they reflect an awakening. A realization that over-reliance on a partner whose leadership swings drastically every 4 years is no longer viable. As part of this broader realignment, Carney announced plans to expedite Canada's defense spending and introduce a procurement strategy designed to cut dependence on US contractors. He committed to increasing military presence in the Arctic and boosting defense spending to exceed the NATO benchmark of 2% of GDP. Currently, Canada sits at just around 1.4%. Under Justin Trudeau, the plan was to reach 2% by 2032. Carney says that's too late. To get there, Canada plans to launch a new federal agency focused exclusively on defense procurement, aiming to centralize expertise and streamline acquisitions. Domestic sourcing will be prioritized, especially in critical sectors like steel, aluminum, and rare earth minerals. Why? Because control over strategic resources is national power in the 21st century, and Canada intends to wield that power with autonomy. And it's not just about money or military toys. It's about trust. Carney has pointed to rising geopolitical uncertainty, especially under Trump's America First philosophy, as a fundamental reason for this shift. According to him, our adversaries are emboldened, and the norms that used to keep us safe are breaking down. The US strategic interests no longer align with Canada's. He's not alone in thinking this. Earlier in his campaign, Carney unveiled a defense policy overhaul aimed at enhancing Canada's military capabilities. This includes increased pay for personnel, investments in submarines, icebreakers, fighter jets, and even a potential reassessment of the multi-billion-dollar F-35 deal with Lockheed Martin. Could Canada pivot to European alternatives like the Eurofighter or the French Rafale? It's not out of the question. But here's the kicker: this pivot isn't just happening in the political and military realms. It's affecting Canadian institutions and the public at large. Several major Canadian organizations have issued internal advisories discouraging travel to the US due to growing tensions and perceived risks at the border. The Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, for instance, has urged staff to avoid travel to the United States, citing volatility and increased scrutiny. Their memo, later confirmed to be authentic, advised staff to minimize data exposure, log out of sensitive apps, and even travel with burner phones and clean laptops to avoid invasive inspections by US Customs. The Alberta Investment Management Corporation, managing nearly 180 billion Canadian dollars in pension assets, has suspended non-essential US travel for employees. Similarly, the University of Waterloo has issued protocols for cross-border travel, warning of expanded US authority to inspect electronic devices. These are not fringe institutions. They are mainstream, respected bodies now taking proactive steps to shield their personnel and data from a close ally. And the effects are showing up in numbers. According to Statistics Canada, the number of Canadian resident return trips from the US by automobile dropped nearly 32% in March 2025 compared to the same time last year. That marks the third consecutive month of decline. Air travel from the US is also down over 13%. Meanwhile, travel from Canada to non-US destinations is on the rise. This isn't just seasonal variation, it's a shift in sentiment. Canadians are voting with their feet. They are looking elsewhere. In other words, we are witnessing the unraveling of what was once considered an unbreakable bond. A relationship built on decades of cultural exchange, economic interdependence, and military cooperation is now marred by suspicion and strategic divergence. Canadian celebrities like Mike Myers have even spoken out against the deteriorating relationship, echoing a growing sense of frustration across the country. What's fueling this rift? US tariffs on critical Canadian exports like steel, aluminum, and autos are threatening Canadian jobs and pushing the country closer to recession. Canadian economists warn that if new or expanded tariffs are introduced, the economic damage could be severe. And this isn't just about economics. It's about sovereignty. About identity. About Canada finally asserting itself not as a junior partner to the US, but as a sovereign, independent power with its own priorities. That independence extends to defense as well. Canada has historically underinvested in its military, relying on the United States for security guarantees. That's why Carney visited Paris and London within days of taking office, seeking to strengthen defense ties with Europe. Back at home, he's also ordered a review of the F-35 fighter jet contract and proposed a major increase in defense spending. Defense Minister Bill Blair has said that reaching NATO's 2% GDP target is now achievable by 2027, provided Canada invests an additional 10 to 13 billion Canadian dollars per year. Carney is pushing for no later than 2030. Skeptics, however, caution that similar promises were made under Trudeau and never fully delivered. Meeting the 2% goal isn't just about money, it's about political will, procurement reform, and fixing a military system plagued by delays and inefficiencies. Canada's defense industry, though closely linked to the US, has its own potential. Companies like Bombardier, MDA Space, and Telesat could lead in critical technologies like space-based surveillance, secure communications, and AI-enabled defense systems. Leaders are now calling on the government to prioritize domestic innovation and production, especially in areas where US suppliers might become unreliable or politically hostile. Public opinion is also shifting. A 2025 Nanos poll shows that only 15% of Canadians now oppose increased defense spending, a significant drop from 26% the previous year. Former Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poloz has even proposed a dedicated military tax to help meet funding goals. Meanwhile, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre wants to redirect foreign aid toward Arctic defense and other military investments. These aren't just political gestures. They represent a fundamental reassessment of Canada's role in the world and its reliance on an increasingly unpredictable United States. Trump has made jokes about annexing Canada. He's threatened to reduce NATO support. He's insulted Canadian policies and taken a combative stance toward trade. For Canada, the writing is on the wall. And yet, even as tensions rise, the two countries remain deeply intertwined. NORAD remains a cornerstone of continental defense. The economies are still heavily integrated. But as Carney has made clear, Canada will no longer take US support for granted. It will act independently where it must, with allies where it can, and always with an eye toward preserving its sovereignty. We've seen concrete action already. In February, Canada launched its largest Arctic military exercise in nearly 20 years. It's also investing in over-the-horizon radar systems to better monitor its vast northern territory. And Carney's campaign, expected to dominate headlines this election cycle, is poised to center on one core idea: defending Canadian sovereignty in an increasingly unstable world. Canada is no longer content to be a quiet neighbor. It's positioning itself as a leader in the new global order, resilient, independent, and globally engaged. It's strengthening ties with Europe and Asia. It's building up its defense industry. It's preparing for a future where the US might not always be a reliable partner. So here's the big question: how will all of this impact the United States? Could rising tensions with Canada hurt the US economy? Could a decline in Canadian tourism and investment signal a deeper unraveling? Could the US be underestimating the cost of losing its closest ally? Let us know in the comments below. If you've made it this far, you're clearly passionate about the future of global politics, and we want to hear your thoughts. What do you think Canada should do next? And how should the US respond? Make sure to hit that like button if you found this video insightful, subscribe for more deep dives into global affairs, and don't forget to share this video with others who care about where the world is heading. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.